Good morning. Today we are continuing with those ratios. We talked about ratios yesterday in Objective 25. Now with CO26, we can identify, write, and find equivalent ratios. Yesterday we talked about simplifying those ratios just like we simplified fractions. So finding equivalent ratios is going to be very similar to equivalent fractions. We've already learned about that. So we have a good understanding going into this objective. So we've already discussed how to write ratios and simplify ratios. Oh my, this is all what I just said. Remember that ratios are simplified similar to how fractions are simplified. The same can be said for finding equivalent ratios. For each ratio below, you're going to write two equivalent ratios. Show your work. Now here's the thing. Remember yesterday we learned the three different ways to write the ratios. If you're doing an equivalent ratio, it should look in the same style as the original ratio. So if we look at 4 to 5 with the colon, what should my equivalent ratios, how should I set it up? With the colon, right? So I'm going to do two sets using the colons. How do you think I'm going to find the equivalent ratio, Bennett? Multiply both sides by the same number. So if I multiply by 2, 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 2 is 10. Bam, equivalent ratio. Then I could say, okay, now let's multiply it by 3. 4 times 3 is 12, 5 times 3 is 15. Done. It's that easy to find equivalent fractions, that easy to find equivalent ratios. You multiply both sides by the same number. Don't have to worry about simplifying. We're not worried about that simplifying. We're just wanting those equivalent fractions. So if I'm going to do 10 to 12, how am I going to set it up? I'm going to need 2 and 2. Then I need to decide what I'm going to multiply by and what I'm going to multiply by. So remember, you multiply both by the same number. So if you're multiplying by 2 the first time, both sides you multiply by 2. Whatever you do to one side, you do the same thing to the other. So you're going to do the rest of these on your own. Let's look at the bottom. Several ratios are in the circle below. Okay. For each given ratio, list each ratio from the circle that is equivalent to it. So here are our given ratios. We need to list each ratio from the circle that is equivalent to it. So if we're going to start with 3 to 1, what ratios in the circle would be equivalent to 3 to 1? Can you find any? Isabel?
9 to 3.
9 to 3. Because we multiply by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 1 times 3 is 3. What other equivalent ratios are there in the circle? There's more than one. Melina? If we were to say 3 to 9, here we have 3 to 1. If we were to go 3 to 9, are we multiplying to go from 1 to 9? We have 9. Is 3 times 9? 3? No, so that doesn't work because you have to be able to multiply both sides by the same number. Did you find one, Luciana?
18 to 6.
We multiplied to 18 to 6, so 1 times 6 is 6. Is 3 times 6 18? It is. So that one works. Anybody find any other ones?
You can only miss the number once.
Yeah, because none of these are equivalent ratios, are given ratios. None of them are equivalent to each other. So the equivalent ratios over here, you would only use one time. Good question. So there are only 2 for the 3 to 1. So you're gonna have to go through and really think, am I multiplying both sides by the same number to get that equivalent? James,
Can you divide also down?
I'm sorry, what?
We're dividing down with 2.
Yes, you could divide down. That would
Yeah.
still be equivalent. You could multiply up, or you could divide down. You can be simplifying it. That's still an equivalent fraction. So if you have something like 18 to 15, that you could divide down and see if that equivalent fraction is in there. We're not going to be listing them. I want you to list them on your paper. Okay? So either multiply up or divide down. Just make sure you're doing the same thing to both sides. Now let's look at our word problems. Okay? So I feel like you can do the equivalent fractions good. The ratio of girls to boys in a class is 3 to 2. There are 15 girls. How many boys are in the class? How many total students are in the class? So remember what we did in yesterday's objective. Girls to boys. So girls is first, then boys. So girls is our first number, then the boys. Then if we know there are 15 girls, remember, we have to find out what we're multiplying by to go from 3 to 15, and we need to multiply the other side by the same number. But then we have to answer the question, how many total students are in the class? So our question mark was, how many boys are in the class? How many total students are in the class? We know how to find how many boys. We did that yesterday. Now I have another question. How do I solve that, Amelia?
You times the 2 by 5.
To find the boys, yes. But how do I find the total number of students? What do you think, Isabel?
You have to add the 2 total things.
So I know there's 15 girls. I need to add that to how many boys there are, and that's going to get us our total number of students. I'm not going to have you give me the answer because I want people to work it out themselves. I'm just helping you understand how to work it out. Nolan, do you have a question?
For the second section,
Mm-hmm.
do all the numbers you're going to use?
That is a great question. I am not sure because I don't have the answer key yet. So when I get the answer key, I'll be able to answer that. All right, so our last word problem is the ratio of dogs to cats in a pet store is 8 to 5. There are 40 cats. How many dogs are in the pet store and how many total? You're going to set it up the same way as our first word problem. Find the missing number like we did yesterday, and then you need the total. So remember, whenever we see that word to find the total, how many total, it means that we are adding. So make sure you answer both questions. Are there any other questions on today's work? Jillian?
If you just, for the first word problem, if you just write the blank boys and then circle it, and then blank total students circle it, like in different sides of it.
Yeah, you're gonna have two answers. So label it, if there's 25 boys, put 25 boys, circle that, and then how many total students, circle that. So yes, circle both answers. Oh no, I randomly picked a number. I don't know how many boys, I didn't do the math. So I randomly picked a number. Okay. All right. If you are watching at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day. And don't forget, my math packet number 4 recording is now on the YouTube channel. So look at that recording to complete math packet number 4.